In our history, there is only one president of the United States who has provoked a group of 27 mental health professionals to co-author a book about the president's mental health. The book is entitled The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, and it is a bestseller. Yesterday, the president, who many psychiatrists have publicly said they believe is sick and dangerous, tweeted this: "The fake news hates me saying that they are the enemy of the people only because they know it's true. I am providing a great service by explaining this to the American people. They purposely cause great division and distrust. They can also cause war!" Exclamation point. They are very dangerous and sick! Exclamation point. The former acting director of the CIA, John McCaffrey, responded to that tweet saying, "We pay way too much attention to these wacky Trump tweets that shouldn't drive news cycles, but the more I stare at this one, the more it seems like some genuinely deep, twisted, and irrational impulse that alarmingly he can't control. It's beyond unpresidential." Here is a sampling of the president's recent public musings that could easily be labeled delusional and sick.
Remember when I hate to say it, coming down the escalator? The beautiful First Lady in the white dress coming down that escalator, that big, big, beautiful day. When everybody said, "Oh, he's just doing this for fun. He doesn't really mean it." Man, if I don't mean it, I hope you tell me soon, because it's a lot of work. But coming down the escalator, and you remember what I said? They're sending. Do you remember that? They're sending. And I mentioned words. I won't even mention them tonight because there's a lot of young people here. But I mentioned words, and everybody thought it was wonderful. But then about 2 days later, they said, "Did he say this? Did he say that?" Guess what? What I said is peanuts compared to what turns out to be the truth. It's peanuts.
So there's the president of the United States telling his audience last week that what he said in the speech announcing his candidacy was unfit for the ears of young people and children. Tonight, retired four-star Army General Barry McCaffrey said, "President Trump's behavior becoming more alarming and illogical in 55 years of service in the armed forces, civil government, and business. I have never encountered this level of anger, insulting behavior, and outright separation from the truth." And joining us now, General McCaffrey, also with us, Professor Jason Johnson, politics editor at The Root. General McCaffrey, I want to get more of your reaction to what you're seeing from the president. I know you've been alarmed for a long time about what you hear from Donald Trump, but is this a new level of alarm for you?
Well, look, I'm not qualified to talk about the president's mental state. I'm just talking about his behavior. You know, I've been decades long serving at the highest levels of the armed forces, civil government, the business community. I personally have never encountered this kind of behavior. The insulting nature of the dealing with this, his clients are us. I mean, the business community doesn't do that. The armed forces, we'd sack a battalion commander who dealt that way with his soldiers. So I think it's of great concern. We've got a couple of more years, at least, with President Trump as the chief executive, and it's looking very worrisome the way he's dealing with his domestic audience as well as the international community.
And there's a Washington Post report from White House sources indicating that some of the president's behavior might be linked to his increased anxiety about the special prosecutor's work. It says, the Washington Post says, in private, President Trump spent much of the past week brooding, yet in public, Trump is a man roaring. The president, more than ever, is channeling his internal frustration and fear into a ravenous maw of grievance and invective. He is churning out false statements with greater frequency and attacking his perceived enemies with intensifying fury. And Jason Johnson, if that fury intensifies as the investigation intensifies, we can expect that it will intensify some more.
Right. And Lawrence, here's the thing. All of this fury is at his enemies. Well, who appear to be Donald Trump's enemies? The press, you know, which are supposed to be here, which are sort of written into the Constitution of free press, and black people who do nice things, whether it happens to be a reporter on another network or it happens to be an African-American from Akron who opened up a school. Part of what makes Donald Trump so dangerous as a president is that his rage and his frustration is not at injustice. It's not at the problems that plague our country. It's not at how the United States is viewed against the world. His anger is always focused on things that don't reflect well on him. And that's what makes him dangerous. I've always said, look, constitutionally, we have the rules in place to keep bad presidents in check. We do not have rules in place to take narcissistic presidents in check. We do not have rules in place to take care of what happens if our government is sort of taken over by one party that abdicates its responsibility to engage in checks and balances. That's why this presidency is so dangerous. And we've seen it in national security. We've seen it domestically. And if we get some fundamental changes this fall, I suspect he'll become even more unhinged if he has to face a Democratic House of Representatives.
General McCaffrey, to Jason's point that the chain of command design does not really have any provisions for dealing with the president who people within that chain of command might suspect of being irrational and out of control.
Well, we ought to remind ourselves the chain of command, I've been after the media on this for the last year, the commander-in-chief title only deals with the U.S. Armed Forces. Nobody else. He's not the commander-in-chief of the country. And within that chain of command, I think we're very fortunate. Look, the Pentagon, Secretary Jim Mattis, is an intellectual. He is worshipped by the armed forces. He's a law-based person. Fortunately, we got service secretaries who are absolutely the best I've seen in 25 years. So I don't think we've got a problem. Secretary Mike Pompeo, very smart, capable person. But what we are now seeing is a complete separation between the facts on the ground in national security and foreign policy and what the president's saying. His team makes a lot of sense, dealing with alliances, dealing with the real threat, North Korea and Iran. But the president's utterances, for example, coming home from Singapore and saying, the nuclear threat's gone. I mean, where did he come up with that? It's just hard to fathom what's going on.
And Jason Johnson, as I said earlier in the program, it seems one of the areas of Trump tweeting that does have a logic is the racist component of Trump tweeting, which is in effect a kind of an open form of direct mail to the members of his support group who are racist.
Right. And here's the thing, Lawrence, and I think this is very important, and I'm sure your other guests will agree with me. Racism and white supremacy and white nationalism spewed by the President of the United States is a national security issue. It is a national security issue when the President of the United States demonizes certain working segments of the U.S. population as somehow being less fit, less trustworthy, or less capable. This is what our enemies exploit. This is what Russia exploits. This is what China exploits. You look throughout history, when other countries have always attempted propaganda or attacks the United States, what they talk about is how the U.S. treats blacks, how the U.S. treats Chinese people, how the U.S. treats Native Americans. So when you have a president that exacerbates that kind of tension, that basically attacks any and all black people who aren't bojangling for him on a regular basis at the White House, it makes the United States a weaker country. It makes us less capable of protecting ourselves or projecting the kind of strength that we need to project abroad.
General Barry McCaffrey and Professor Jason Johnson, thank you both for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Good.